Happy Friday. We've got Tampa Bay Buccaneer football. Dun, 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 dun. At MetLife Stadium against the New York Jets. And boy, oh boy, I wonder if anybody that you know will play. This is going to be one of these days where, you're going to need a roster to know the players. We're going to get into that. And your mailbag questions answered 100% correctly coming up here on Sports Day Tampa Bay. So, Steve, let's start with the Bucs, and we'll get to the mailbag questions for sure. If you're a fan, most people just want to see the stars play, and that makes sense, right? Especially because I think they charge you the same amount, whether it's a preseason game or not.
I mean, what teams did over the years is charge you the same amount for the season ticket package. They just lower the preseason, up the regular season.
Gotcha.
And so,
they kind of hit it in the other games.
Yeah, I mean,
if you will.
They have dynamic pricing now for most of the stuff. So
okay,
those games cost less than, the ticket value of those are less.
Right.
But it is part of your season ticket package.
Okay. Well, regardless, I think the way you have to look at this as a football fan is, there's 90 players on the roster, and the biggest concern for these teams is injuries, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've always said this: football has become NASCAR. You can be leading the race, but if a part falls off, you're out of the race. So, because they have these joint practices this week, at least they had two against the Jets. They got a lot of good work in. Other than Emeka Egbuka, and we can talk about his foot injury here in a minute. But other than that, they came out of it pretty unscathed. And yet, most of this was for the starters, right? Like most of the work, everybody got some work, but they did a lot of reps with the starters on defense and on offense, good against good, right? Jets number starting offense against the Bucs starting defense, and et cetera. Other guys played too. But because you got that work and you didn't compromise anybody, although, the first day was like, night at the fights all day. It was, guys just going after each other 6 different times. But because you got work in and no one got hurt, you're going to play your young players, your rookies, guys trying to make the team, guys coming back off injury, what have you, in this game. Now, next week, the Chiefs are not coming in. The Chiefs are going to come in just for the preseason game.
Mm-hmm.
And next week, you're going to see starters for the Bucs. Now, how much will they play? Probably not a lot, to be frank. But they won't have spent, 2 days banging during the week in full pads against another team. Okay. And then Jacksonville, it being the last preseason game. Well, coaches get really cold feet when you're just a week away from preparing to be a week away from the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't expect.
You're also doing joint practices that week. So
you have the same thing. You have the starters playing one. It's just one joint practice, but nonetheless, they're going to get all their work there, not get hurt, and be controlled environment type thing. And then you can play your backups or what have you in the final preseason game. Maybe, and this was asked yesterday of Todd Bowles, and we may have discussed it, but like, what do you do with a Rueben Bain? I don't think he plays at all tonight. I have a feeling he said very little, if at all. Well, I'll take if at all for 100, Alex, because if he's a game wrecker,
I probably don't play him, but he's going to play it some in the preseason.
I think he'll play the second week, just a little bit.
I don't think Baker plays in the preseason
at all.
He didn't last year, right?
No, you're right.
I don't think Godwin does.
Not to mention it.
I don't think Godwin does,
no,
based on his injury history.
I would not play Godwin.
And
now Emeka may not play, to be honest.
There are guys that, I probably don't want to play Tristan Wirfs unless he really wants to play.
Well, and he hasn't even been cleared to practice.
Right.
So,
yeah, exactly. So
definitely he's out.
Well, tonight, but I'm talking the whole preseason.
Yeah, he might be. He might be out the whole preseason simply because now if he can go to Jacksonville, especially if he goes there and works, I don't think you play Tristan Wirfs. I don't think you play your starting offensive line. But the thing is, next week, they're going to have to play the starting offensive line that Baker's playing next week.
If Baker's playing, the offensive line's playing. It maybe not Wirfs if he's not cleared or whatever. But the offensive line. But Rueben Bain Jr., I do want to get him some snaps. I don't know if it's tonight or whatever, but he's never played NFL football. And granted, you're not going against starters completely, but which is why I'd probably maybe not tonight, but maybe
next week,
or maybe even a little bit in Jacksonville, depending on if they're going to play starters.
But he'll get all that work in the joint practice too.
That too. But you still want him to get some game rep. He's a rookie, right? Like rookies, I want to play doesn't have to play a ton.
Yeah.
But like you're just trying to, you played college football, you played high level college football, you played the national championship game. But the speed of the NFL, everything about the NFL is different, right?
And there's preseason speed and then regular season speed.
There is, but it's that next step of let me get my feet wet a little bit.
Yeah.
So any rookie, assuming they're healthy, I want them to get a few snaps in the preseason. How much it is can determine on the player, how the work during the week goes, particularly when you have a joint practice or two with a team. So you may be less because if you think you got great work in there, and Rueben Bain, from all accounts, has had great work this week. So, does he play tonight? Probably not. Could I see him play a few snaps at home next week? Sure.
Yeah.
I think that's a good possibility.
Yeah, very few. I will tell you this, that Bain going up here against these starters, and they had a pretty good right tackle rather, he was destroying people. Like this dude, and they say that like he's eaten up. Like he drives them a little bit crazy because he's constantly, in a good way, ask every question imaginable. What do I do here? What about this? What about this? How about this? He's a student of the game. It's all football. I don't think anybody's talked to him about anything except ball. Like he doesn't have another interest. Like he just is. He's the way. And him and Trotter have been described to me as absolute throwbacks. Guys that could have played 70s, 80s, 90s. Like they're just that guy. And between the two of them, because Trotter to me has been as impressive as Bain has been in the joint workouts that I saw. And for that matter, in training camp against his own guys, I mean, he's been wrecking people. He comes downhill and he's thumping, like he's bringing a payload. So, that's been fun to watch. But yeah, I think you get him in there. I think you get him out right away, and you let them work against Jacksonville, and you let them. Obviously they just worked this week, and that's the NFL. I mean, then you go out there and you hope week 1 in Cincinnati that Joe Burrow has a long day, that Cincinnati's offensive line isn't ready for you. But that's kind of where they're at. And but there are some guys that you do need to and will be looking at this week. And some have played and some have not played lately. But there's some dudes that, are going to help this team and are getting a lot of reps, even though you wouldn't have expected it from them. I was talking yesterday up here in New Jersey with Ayden Garnes. Ayden Garnes is a defensive back that's been starting. He's been running with the ones because both Zion McCallum and Benjamin Morrison have been out. Parrish, has been playing the other corner when they're out. And Garnes has stepped in. Now, he's a rookie. He was undrafted. He played at Arizona, West Virginia, and Duquesne, not in that order. He played like 3 years in Duquesne. He only played 6 games at West Virginia. Then he transferred to Arizona. Not the biggest guy. He's about 6 foot, maybe 190 or so. But man, has he made plays. And yesterday, it was impressive because, he was running with the ones, as I mentioned, and he was going up against, top flight receivers, for the Jets and whatnot, and doing a pretty good job, especially in the 2-minute situation. But like he took care of Garrett Wilson, and he batted away 2 passes in a 2-minute drill, and they stopped the Jets. And he told me, he goes, that Wilson had made a play yesterday on a dig route, and he says, and I told him right afterward, I said, I'm going to get you back. And I was talking to him yesterday and letting him know I was here, and he didn't know I was a rookie, and I let him know. That's a rookie doing this. That's a rookie doing this. Like, that's a lot of swag for a guy that just walked on, as an undrafted free agent from his 3rd college school. But that's what you want to see. You want to see those guys now when the lights come on. You want to see them show up. The quarterback situation is muddied. I think they're going to have to go with just the backups. Jalon Daniels, I think, is going to get a lot of work, and that's the guy in a game like this. Jalon Daniels could announce his arrival in the sense that he's got some physical talent, a strong arm. He's quick twitch, both sort of delivering the ball and making decisions, and also can run. He adds the element of his legs, and I just think that he could get extended time, because number 1 and number 2 are out. They're we don't know for sure. I guess it's still up in the air about what's going to happen with the quarterback situation. We know Baker's not playing, but a guy like Daniels could end up winning that job over Connor Bazelak at number 3. Here's the problem, though. If he's really good, I mean really, really good, you're going to have to carry him on the active roster, and no team wants to carry 3 quarterbacks because you're going to have to subject him to waivers and hope to get him back on the practice squad. Now, usually that happens because other teams are trying to, balance their roster with their 53 best players, and they don't carry 3 quarterbacks either. But Daniels could make this. He could force the issue a little bit if he's that good. But it'll be his first bite of the Big Apple, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he plays because he's made some big plays. He has made a lot of splash things. But again, who are you playing with, right? Who are you playing against? That's part of the equation, is that you have to judge these guys against many players that aren't going to make the other team. But that's who's out there. That's who you compete against. Then I mentioned Garnes, I mentioned Daniels. There's a couple other guys. I think David Walker, who tore his ACL last year, never got to play in the preseason. He's been killing people in practice. He was killing guys with the New York Jets the other day. If David Walker turns out to be what they thought he was going to be a year ago before the injury, kid from Central Arkansas, 2-time FBS Defensive Player of the Year, if all that comes back, even with the reconstructed knee, he could be no worse than maybe your 3rd rotational pass rusher. And he can also play a little bit inside because he's not a big, long, linear guy. So I'm really looking forward to him getting on the grass and, and doing kind of picking up from what he left off in the Jets practice. There's a couple others. I think DeMonte Capehart, who's a defensive lineman from Clemson, big guy. Had just 1 sack last year, 29 tackles. But when you talk about, what's going on with Vita Vea and how they're going to have a rotation maybe of defensive tackles, and they've tried to get bigger, which, Capehart is. You got guys like Ashawn Robinson and Raheem Nunez-Roche is back on this team. He could be a big, big contributor simply because they may have to tap into their depth right away, at D tackle if Vita is not signed. I think that they're going to work this out somehow. I think the only solution is for them to try to chip him up and get Vita. Right now, he's fallen further and further down the list of highest paid defensive linemen because there seems to be a new defensive lineman or new defensive tackle signed for a massive contract every day. But if they can get him in the top 10-ish, and he comes back into the fold, he seems fine. He's got a good attitude. I see him in the hotel. He's always smiling. He's Vita. Apparently he goes to meetings and he goes to the walkthrough and all of that. So he's staying on top of it mentally for a guy that says he thinks this is going to end, or his agents thinks it's going to end in a trade. But Capehart would be a nice piece if he can prove to, give me 10 snaps a game. Give me 12 snaps a game, give me some situational stuff that I can use. And then another guy I think is interesting that's had a good camp is Josh Williams. He was here last year, the running back from LSU. And we know they got 3 running backs that they really, really like. Sometimes it takes more than that. But Williams is the guy that was suspended 6 games for violating the PED policy. But he looks really impressive. He's a little bigger back than some of the guys they have, and they don't have a big back. Tucker and all those guys are all about the same size. But I think Williams has looked good, and if he can play special teams, and that's what's going to decide it for all these rookies, is how well they can run down there and cover kicks and return kicks and things like that. But Williams, you could see returning some kicks in this game as well. So there's 5 guys just to look at, and really just, when you watch this game, don't be critical in terms of like, oh, the Bucs suck, or they're not as good as the Jets backups. Or look, when it mattered, I thought certainly the first day, Tuesday, might have been a bit of a draw. Wednesday, the Bucs kicked the crap out of the Jets. They did. And, and that was on both sides of the ball. So they've got a good football. I mean, I think this is a good football team. I think as they play longer together and you get the offense ironed out and other guys, get situated in their defense and what Todd wants to do. He hasn't really shown much. That's the other thing. These are all going to be vanilla schemes. I think Bowles has some new ideas. He tells me he has some new ideas about what he wants to do schematically on defense. It won't be the same that you've seen because they've had to kind of cover up for their lack of pass rush and do things. So I think this will be different. But there's a number of young players here. They had 23 rookies, I think, on this 90-man roster between draft picks and guys that they signed, undrafted off the street. So a lot of young players. And you got to remember, too, it's their dream. Like when you think about where some of these kids have come from, and I was talking to Daniels about this and a little bit to to the defensive back. It just Garnes, Garnes said, he goes, I told myself last week, first drive or kickoff, I'm going to look around. I'm going to look around and say, okay, this is a dream come true. It's a dream fulfilled. It's a dream that a lot of people I know haven't been able to, haven't even a chance to do it. And so good for him. He's going to get out in that tunnel, look around, suck it in and really, try to enjoy it. And then Daniels told me, he goes, I wouldn't even say I'm excited is the word for it. He goes, it's a dream come true to be able to play at this level, playing professional football. I mean, I've been dreaming of this moment since I was a kid. So being out there and being able to play in the NFL Football Friday, it means the world. We forget, and for many of these players, when this preseason ends, they will never put on a helmet. Like they won't be. Maybe some go to the UFL, or maybe some have a chance to play. Get picked. Obviously, the guys who go to practice squad will still be playing football, but the balance of the players, because there's only 53 on an active roster, are not going to be here. So for some guys, this will be as close as they get to the NFL. But it is still their dream, So when you watch them play and you're going, who's that guy? I don't see this guy. It's like those dudes out there are living a dream. Like they have worked their entire lives to get to this stage, and they're going to be on it Friday night. So it's pretty cool for them. We got your mailbag questions coming up here in just 1 second. I want to remind you to get on down to Breitling Boutique. You know what time it is? It's football time, but that's where you're going to find the best timepiece you will ever own. The Breitling Company's been making these beautiful watches in Switzerland now for 140 plus years. They've been in International Plaza Mall for over 6 years. Where are you going to find it? Center of the mall, second floor. That's where the Breitling Boutique is. Beautiful store, lots of room in there, man. Come on in, spend some time. Let them pour you a drink and enjoy the customer service. They're going to tell you about the men's watches, the Navitimers, the chronomats that they are known for. Also, they have ladies' watches for your wife, your girlfriend. They have sports watches that are beautiful, durable. She can choose from any different colored wristband. And they have elegant watches for her as well. And while supplies last, man, if you're a sports fan, you got to get into this. 32 NFL team watches, especially designed for Breitling. And, these watches for every team in the NFL are available if the supplies are there. They have the team colors in the face of the watch, the logo inside. They are spectacular. And they also have 3 variations of that, including a sports watch if you want it. It is Breitling Boutique. It's at International Plaza Mall. When you go, would you please let them know you heard about it right here on Sports Day Tampa Bay. All right, we got some mailbag questions. Let's get to it.
All right, Mike in New Hampshire emailed you. He says, thanks for the amazing podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I've been following the Vita Vea watch. When do you think the vets on the team will start souring on Vita? I think players should try to get their pay, but at what point do you start hurting your team and the locker room? He's definitely a top-notch player and a great vet to have on the team, but if I'm another veteran busting my butt in the hot sun, I would start losing support for him. You look less like a team player and more like a guy in it for the money. How long until they start turning their backs on Vita?
When is the 4th of never? Here's the thing. The reality is that in professional football or professional athletics in general, there's a couple of things you just don't get involved with. And the first being somebody else's money, right? because your day's coming. If you're lucky enough to play 4 years in the NFL and get to free agency, your day is coming. And, you can't tell a guy what his value is, right? That's between his agent, his business partner, the club, and maybe God, okay? Vita is as well-liked a player and a teammate as anybody in here. And, he's an important player for sure. And everybody wants team success, but they also understand that, there's a business side to this game. It's not always fair. It doesn't always work out for every single player. I think there's players looking at this and saying, wow, Baker Mayfield and Vita Vea, those are the two guys we're not paying, really? You don't want those conversations, and I think Baker, by setting a deadline, attempted, I don't think it worked, but he attempted to end it, at least as far as the players were concerned. Like he didn't want them to pick up, the mantle and all year long say, why didn't Baker have his money? He gave him a deadline so that, okay, we're not talking to them. We're not talking about it. We're all football. I'm all football. He stood up in front of his teammates and said, I want you guys to know that that's not my concern. My concern is winning. And I think most people recognize Vita's value. He's so well liked that I disagree with you. I think most people are probably more mad at the club than the player, because they sit next to that player. They sweat next to that player. They see the weights that he lifts. They see what he brings to their football team. Yes, they want him on the field with them. They do. And he's in the hotel right now. He's been in every meeting. Like he could elect to not do that stuff. Now he'd be fined, but the Bucs are essentially letting him hold in. But he's going to everything. They didn't need to bring him to New Jersey, and they did. So he's preparing as best he can without being on the field. And you hope that if they do get it resolved, that he's ready to wreak havoc and just be Vita Vea. But it's those dynamics do not really exist. Do they want him next to them? Do they want him playing? Do they think they're better? Yes. Do they think he's selfish? No, they don't. Every player wants the next guy to get as much money as he can, because that's going to be them one day. Their turn is coming, and you just can't you can't interject yourself into someone else's business, right? He's got a family, he's got a wife, kids, other people he's taking care of. You can't tell him, hey, 17 million seems like an awful lot. And it is. It's generational wealth. But apples to apples, he's now probably fallen down to about 17 or 18, as with these new salaries of these defensive tackles in the last couple of weeks. And he knows his value is higher than that, even though those other guys are younger than 31. So fans will get tired of it. I understand that. The coaches desperately want him on the field, but they can't, their place is not to go in and start telling the general manager what's a fair deal or what the owners think they should pay him. Everybody's just kind of waiting. And if it was anybody but Vita, I suppose there probably it may be a player or two that's just, such an idiot that people don't want him to get paid, but then, how did he make it this far? So yeah, it is a, we're tired of seeing a big 50 standing over there instead of next to us type of deal, but they're not blaming the player. Trust me, they're not. It's just business. And when that gets settled, he'll be right back in that hall sweating with them. And he wants to be with his guys too. This is the thing, like players play, players want to play. I mean, they smell the fresh cut grass. They know it's August and they know they should be playing football, and I'm sure it's been tough on him, but he's an older player, so it's not going to kill him to miss some training camp reps. But I'm sure he wants to be next to his guys, and he is next to his guys in every other thing except practice and games. So we'll see where it all pans out. But no, it really isn't like that. It sounds antithetical to what fans think, but there's no bitterness. They want him on the field, but they want him to be happy and to make as much money as he can and be next to them.
Ali in the UK wrote, the weakest position for the Buccaneers entering the season is, keep up the great work, guys.
Hello. The weakest position, I think it's defensive. I think it's corner.
We talked about this the other night.
Yeah, and I say that because there's almost no depth. And the plan, was draft Benjamin Morrison in the second round a year ago. You knew you eventually were going to lose Jamel Dean. You lost Jamel Dean. He played his final year last year and signed with the Steelers. And you had an ascension plan. You're going to have Benjamin Morrison or maybe Jacob Parrish take over that job. And then you had Zion McCallum, who you extended last year. So you had already made your decision that we're better off with Benjamin Morrison and Zion McCallum, or Zion McCallum and Jacob Parrish than we were with Jamel Dean. Now, would you like to have brought some a veteran in here that may not be as great but is played? Yeah, I think that's the one thing that's missing, right? Because you're backing up young players, guys in their second or first year, with guys in their second or first year. And so you don't have that experience. And sometimes it's good just to have somebody that's been through the fire once, been around the league once. Even if they're not. Remember a couple of years ago when one of Brady's last years, they brought in Richard Sherman, and I think he came in on Sunday and told us there's no way he could play, and he was playing the next Sunday. Or he came in on Wednesday and he was playing the next Sunday. But the cornerback position, just because of its lack of depth. And look, those guys get hurt. They're involved in a lot of collisions. They go up for footballs. They come down on people's feet. It's not a position where, you don't have a high level of injury. They have to run a lot. They get hamstring pulls. They get everything receivers get. So from that standpoint, I would say that's going to be their Achilles heel. Now, those guys look a lot better if you can rush the passer, right? Like they look a hell of a lot better. Like last year, with only 37 sacks and many of those dialed up with blitzes, they were exposed and they gave up a lot of passing yards as a result. You couldn't use Antoine Winfield Jr. except for anything but a center fielder because he was the smartest guy in the room, and you wanted to make sure you at least had a true safety that could stop a guy from going to the end zone on every play. But this year, I think they feel like their front seven is pretty stout, that they won't have to bring pressure on every play until or unless they want to create, havoc. But those corners still have to hold up. Maybe not for as long, maybe not 3 or 4 seconds, maybe just 2.5, which makes a big difference when the ball's coming out that fast. So I still think that's the position that could bite them. I mean, already like this week, Zion didn't practice. Morrison did some individual stuff in pads, which is the first time he's even done that because he has the hamstring, which is a different hamstring than kept him out all last year. Parrish has done some stuff bouncing outside, but he's kind of going in between nickel and outside corner. So we saw it this week. I mean, they were beat up. That's what we were talking about. The guys we were just mentioning a minute ago. But there's still a need for maybe one more experienced corner. I don't know that, the teams just don't cut good corners in this league. So you probably have what you have, but that's the Achilles heel on defense and probably on the team.
All right. Patrick asked, what is the most significant preseason game you've ever covered? Perhaps a major injury or scheme change. Nowadays, they seem like much ado about nothing.
Wow, it's a great question. When you guys ask me the best of stuff, like I got too many years in to really narrow it down. You should probably send me the best of questions about a week in advance so I can think about it. Most consequential, I wouldn't say it was the most consequential. I'll tell you what the most fun one was. After they won the Super Bowl in 2002, we went to Tokyo for what was then called the American Bowl Series. And folks, when I tell you it was a long way, it was a really long way. I think it was 18 hours for me from Houston. I was not on the team charter. But the boys had a little fun over there.
I bet.
And they had to be careful because you can't do certain things in Japan that you can do in the United States. But culturally, it's the coolest. It's one of the coolest societies ever, I think, in the world. Clean like you cannot believe. You land in Tokyo. I don't know how many people were there, 12, 14, I don't know what it is, millions and millions, tens of millions. And the first thing you notice is you're in this giant airport, and it's so quiet. Like there's just like a small, and I mean a faint hum, instead of just, the loud American, and then the cleanliness of the place is next to anything I've ever experienced, especially in a large city. Everybody has a job. Sometimes they all have too many people on one job. And yeah, it was really cool. And I remember I went to I wrote a story about this. I went to eat sushi one day with Warren Sapp and Simeon Rice. And so the headline was Sapp, Sushi, and Rice, which I thought was a good headline.
There you go.
And Simeon turned out didn't want to try it. Warren had two of the biggest bowls of whatever it was. It looked like a terrarium in there of different raw seafood and stuff. But the tuna, unbelievable. Your mouth is watering outside this place. It was so cool. And then the other thing I remember is Chris Sims was a rookie on that team, I believe, after they'd won the Super Bowl in 2003. And they had a banquet, like this American Bowl banquet or whatever. They were, culturally doing some stuff. And he needed a pair of dress shoes. He had forgot his dress shoes. And they were supposed to wear a jacket and, not necessarily a tie, but whatever. And Sims discovered in shopping, he was with Keyshawn at the time, that there was nothing larger than a size 11 in Japan or 12 that you could buy in a dress shoe. It didn't exist because they're not big people by nature, right? And so they didn't carry a lot of size 14s or whatever his shoe size was. I don't know. So that was a problem. But yeah, that was preseason. That was probably the most fun. And the deadlines were crazy. Like I literally could do the game, and because it was overnight in the United States, because there's a different day over there, you're across the international date line. I could do the game, come home, wake up the next morning, and still have like 5 hours to write the story, which was cool. But I would give you that one for a preseason. How's that?
That sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, so I got to raise a couple questions here. Ed asked, in your opinion, are the Rays a lock to win the AL East with 42 games left and leading now by 6.5 games over the Yankees because they lost this afternoon?
There's no locks in baseball. There's no crying in baseball. There's also no locks in baseball. When you hear the magic number and it starts shrinking, then and only then, when you get that X or check next to the box, do you clinch. We've seen teams, and we saw how hot were the Red Sox there for a while. What'd they win? 19 out of 20? I mean, I don't know. They were
20. I think they were 27-3.
27-3. Think about that. 27 out of 30 games. My God. I mean, you can't be any hotter. And yet they have turned around, and I think they at one point had lost 6 in a row.
Yeah. 5 in a row going. I don't know if they're playing. We're taping this late afternoon Thursday. I don't know if they play tonight. But
it turns. Is what I'm saying is it turns.
Yep.
The Rays went through a little bit of a skid, and then they went on the road, and they're coming home with a 9-0 road trip. Like that's
well, don't forget, in 2011, the Rays were 9 games back of the Red Sox going into September.
Wow.
And caught them. That's
crazy. Yeah. So even though, and look, I give the Rays a ton of credit. Do I think they're going to win the AL East? Yes, I do. I think, if they go into the final, is it the final series against New York, and then they go to Philadelphia?
It's the final road trip. Yeah, final road trip, or the final 2 series.
I think they got like 4 games. If they go in there and they just have to win one of the 4, they're going to win the division, But is it over? No, it's not over. It's not over, because how about injuries, right? We're just going to say no one else is going to get hurt. You just don't know, man. Baseball is a grind, and that's why, you can't determine the winner of a marathon at milepost 20. It's 26 miles, I believe. And so anything can happen, and usually does. I think the team that's playing the best baseball all year has definitely been the Rays in the American League. They've been the most consistent, and they now have the best record. But that's not to say, I think what's important is that you're playing your best at the end of the year when you got some momentum going into the postseason. I think that matters. It's not an absolute, but I think it helps. But no, especially the Rays, because they're not deep, right? They're getting it done the way they're getting it done. And Aranda and Caminero and some of those guys have had unbelievable years. The pitching has been incredible. How about Seymour, by the way, the last 6 or 7 outings?
He's been great.
I mean, he's been phenomenal. And yet they're still getting guys hurt, on their starting pitching staff.
Mm-hmm.
So, could you do it without Aranda? Could you do it without Caminero? Could you do it without? No, I don't. I think you're a different club. Just like the Yankees are a different club without Aaron Judge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're still in it. I give them a lot of credit. I was watching them play Seattle. They were bashing them. They were behind 5-3. Next thing you know, they're up 7-5. Like, they did a nice job, but you got to have your guys, you know, and we're too many months away from October baseball. But would I feel really good about them winning the East? Yeah, I would. I really would. Because they've done well at home. They've done well in their division. And assuming that they stay relatively healthy, I think they're going to win it. I mean, it's been an unbelievably enjoyable year. Not just a good year in terms of like the number of wins they could have, but just the way they've done it, you know, the way they've manufactured stuff and stuck together and the fun characters and the Caminero and his energy. Like, that's all been fun to watch to me.
All right, David wrote us. He said, there's no bad time to win, but my thinking was the Rays would want to most field a winner when the new stadium was built. But could a World Series contending team this year be even more important to get money for the stadium and keep the Rays in Tampa Bay?
Well, those decisions, those financial decisions with governments usually aren't based on the win-loss record, but those politicians are elected.
And they're probably happening this month before this.
Right,
the World Series
and they listen to their constituents. And if the constituents are happy about the Rays because they're successful and they're going to play, you know, in the postseason, they're going to win divisions and things like that, then it puts a lot of pressure on those politicos. I know that. I think there's certain people, I won't name names just yet, I have a theory, that are going to try to ride the white horse. You can probably figure out who they are. Where they may have been against the Rays for a while, and now they're going to be their biggest champions and look like they're problem solvers because they have political aspirations beyond the city council, say. So I don't think
a politician wants to move up. What?
Yeah, and how about using the heartstrings of a Major League Baseball team to do it?
What?
To look like a civic hero. Yeah. I was against it until I was for it, and I pushed you across the goal. That's going to be the sort of the spin here, is that somebody's going to put on a cape and say, I got it. I made it happen. So elect me.
I bet there'll be more than one of those saying that.
There'll be a few. Yeah, there'll probably be a few. I was against it before I was for it, but then I was for it, then I was against, then I was whatever. It doesn't hurt. I still don't think, you know, you're talking about millions and millions of dollars in tax consequences and other needs for a community like fire and schools and roads, and, you know, this stuff doesn't grow on trees. And believe it or not, we're on a Sports Day Tampa Bay podcast. I'm a sports writer. Steve's been in sports his whole career. It matters to us, but I learned early on that they told me like 1/3 of the readers of our newspaper, or now online, 1/3 even looked at sports. 1/3. I thought we were the most important people in the world. So you got to remember that there are many, many folks out there not listening to this podcast that could give a rat's rump, you know, whether there's baseball here or any other place. It's just not part of their lives. And hard as that might be to believe, it's true. So,
they should just listen to this podcast and they would become sports fans.
Well, that's true. They would. They should give it a try. And God knows enough people are listening, because I'm not saying this to puff our chest out, but I go anywhere and they're like, hey, man, like I get stopped 2 and 3 times, you know, just out in public of people. I love your podcast. You and Steve do a great job. Blah, blah, blah. So you should be listening, whether you're a sports fan or not, and we'll make you one. But no, I think it won't. Let's put it this way. It won't hurt. How much it helps? But about winning now, I agree with this. And I think they made reference, just like, wouldn't it be better if they won? No. Listen, you can't predict when you're going to win. And this is something that, like we were saying during the trade deadline, like, if you're the team that's going to win the American League East for whatever reason, maybe the East stinks, maybe everybody's hurt, maybe whatever. But if you're going to win the American League East, get a bye in home playoff games, brother, that's when you go for it, right? Because there's no tomorrow in this game, in baseball. If you're having that kind of year, and I think that they, to their credit, they didn't give away their future prospects, their best prospects. They gave away some, but they got some pretty good guys in return, like my Arkansas State Red Wolf. You know,
by the way, they gave up 8 prospects at the trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
They were just ranked by Baseball America as the deepest farm, or the number one
after the trades, right?
Yeah. They have 7 in the top 100 now, matching the Dodgers.
Phenomenal. They do a phenomenal job of drafting and developing players. And that's why they're able to make those deals, because they have strength to deal with. But they still didn't tap into their best prospects. So the way it's built, and now, did they have a ton of money this year to go out and get the best free agents that were out there, or that could potentially, make the best trades with the highest salaried players? No, that would be the Dodgers. The Dodgers did that, right? They got the pitcher from Detroit. The Rays did not. And that's a financial deal. But the money is what the money is. These guys are pretty extended buying this franchise. I don't think they necessarily prepared them to make a World Series run the first year, although it would be nice. We're not going to give the rings back. So, yeah, why not now? And listen, if not now, when? That's the thing. Like, everybody goes back down the mountain. We talked about it being a marathon. Your 6.5 game lead in the East on August 13th. Feel pretty good about it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that we'll be looking at August 13th in the next few years where they have a 6.5 game lead in this division. I don't know that that's going to happen. Be nice, but I don't know it's going to happen. But it's happening now. So yeah, win it now. Go win it now.
All right, we'll wrap up on this one. Bolts Rays Bucs had tweeted it. Says, in your opinion, out of the Rays, Bolts, and Bucs, who will win the next championship for Tampa Bay?
Wow. This makes no sense at all. But I go back to the fact that Toronto was just like maybe 1 out away, from potentially winning the World Series last year against the almighty Dodgers. I think it's the Rays, because it's recency bias. They're leading the American League East. And if you get in the postseason with the way they're playing, could they find themselves in a World Series and win it? Yeah, they could. The Bucs have to climb the mountain again. We know there's some really good teams in the NFC. The NFC South has gotten better. I don't know if all these things are going to work out. I don't know if Todd Bowles is going to survive this year. There's too many questions to me to say it's going to be the Bucs. We've seen them win one playoff game in the last 3, 4, or 5 years, whatever it's been. So I wouldn't go there. The Lightning, I could say every year they have the best path to winning in NHL just because it's such a great organization. But having said that, look at the teams in their division. Look at who they have to climb over. And I'm talking in the first round of the playoffs.
Yep.
Just to get to a Stanley Cup, let alone win one. So I think that's a slog for them, no matter who's on the ice. And they have tremendous, Hall of Fame type players and a Hall of Fame coach for sure. But hockey is just one of those games, man, where right now everyone they play is great. And so I think it's the Rays.
I think you have to go they have the best record in baseball.
Yeah, how much better, right?
3/4 of the way through the season. Like,
if we said that about the Bucs and they were, say, 12-2, right?
You would be saying the Bucs.
You'd be saying it was the Bucs, and that's really the equivalent. Like, how do you not say that team?
Yeah. Like,
so,
the Rays, barring an epic collapse, are going to make the playoffs.
Right.
They should win the division.
Right.
But even if they don't, they're going to make the playoffs in a wild card because the American League as a whole stinks.
Absolutely.
So, they only need a handful more wins to guarantee a 500 season.
Yeah.
They're at 74 wins. You need 8 more wins out of 42 games to be over 500. And that 82 wins might get you in the playoffs in the American League, which is pretty scary, to be honest. That you could be that bad and make the playoffs. So, you have to, because of where the Rays are in the standings, you have to say that the Rays have the best shot to win the next championship.
Oh, 100%. Yep. I don't think it's close, and feel comfortable saying that. So, great mailbag questions. You can submit them anytime you want to at SportsDayTB on X, at NFL Stroud. My email address is rstroud@tampabay.com. Enjoy the Buccaneers playing at the Jets tonight. And then we'll talk about that, I'm sure, on Monday's podcast, as well as the Rays make their way back home from that 9-0 road trip
They host the Orioles this weekend, a rare 4-game wraparound series, Friday through Monday.
That's crazy, right? Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I saw where they're opening up the third deck.
They are for
concert, right?
Saturday's game, with the Jordan Davis concert.
Concert going on there, so
but
it should be a good time.
Flappy Boy bobbleheads. Apparently, the shipping delays, so that's going to be postponed till September. But if you have a ticket to the game, you're getting a free ticket to the game in September to get one. So,
okay, well that'll work. That'll work for sure. Anyway, enjoy your weekend. Go down to Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. Check out the beautiful watches they have, the NFL watches, while supplies last, as well as watches for your wife or girlfriend. It is Breitling Boutique. Let them know you heard about it here on Sports Day Tampa Bay. Thanks for listening, everybody, each and every week. For Steve Versnick, I'm Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times. Have a great weekend.